Hello, this is Blue Star, Defender of Equestria, and this is my AfterThoughts review to My Little Pony Make Your Mark, Chapter 5. Oh, it's just so nice seeing this generation finally making its mark, so roar! Overall, Chapter 5 was honestly really good in that it, in some ways, finally had the thing I really wanted, which was those really cool, memorable moments that have made, My Little Pony such a special show, because I must admit, at first, it felt like, this generation, for the most part, is just another television show. But this chapter is definitely showing is that it may have taken a while for them to get there, but they're finally starting to get to the really good parts. So, roar! Because this generation has had to do a lot of world building and a lot of maintenance and stuff in the very early chapters because, this is just simply not a continuation of the previous generation. This is a new generation that's trying to build upon the previous generation, but leave its own mark in the world of Equestria, so that's taken a little bit of time. But now that they've done all that, they're starting to get to those really cool, memorable moments that make this more than just another television show. It's like, the long story short is that, I may not have been through this exact circumstance, but I've either been through it or going through it right now, so I totally understand how these ponies feel. And to see these ponies triumphing over these situations is just so cool. So, roar! It's like with Fluttershy and Hurricane Fluttershy. It's like we've probably all been bullied or had things in our past that have held us back, and to see Fluttershy overcoming those things was just so cool to so many ponies. So, roar! And those kinds of things are starting to happen now. We're seeing Misty, coming into her own. In the previous chapter, she's made a pretty big decision, and now in some ways we're seeing, the aftermath or the continuation of that decision, because you just don't, decide to leave a supervillain and then just, ride off into the sunset or something. There's a lot more that comes afterwards. So there was a lot more of that stuff going on, but there was a couple other almost, regular episodes of My Little Pony, which I actually thought were pretty good. I mean, in the previous chapter, I wasn't too thrilled with the sort of like the one that they did. Yeah, Pip just needed to be reminded that, ponies care about her. I kind of like that in the moral, and it's kind of nice, but, she's a member of one of the most amazing group of friends, ever. I think she knows her friends care about her. But I think the short answer is that I kind of liked the morals in the two, quote-unquote, regular episodes of My Little Pony in this chapter than the last chapter, and overall those episodes were actually pretty fun and interesting, and after all the relatively heavy things that have happened in the previous chapter and this chapter, it was kind of nice to have a couple episodes like that. So overall, this chapter was actually pretty good. I mean, we got to have some of those cool, memorable moments, but at the same time be balanced out by some of the more regular episodes of My Little Pony, so things didn't get too heavy. But at the same time, still moving the bigger picture forward, and the bigger picture is definitely getting interesting, because there were some big developments towards something that might be very interesting, and I look forward to seeing where all this goes. So, roar! So this chapter, I think, shows that, MLP is starting to finally get out of, in some ways, world-building mode and starting to get to those really cool, memorable moments that I think we've all been kind of waiting for. And I look forward to seeing where they go with all this and looking forward to seeing more. So, roar! So now, as usual, you are about to enter the spoiler-free fire zone. So if you don't want spoilers, don't watch the rest of this video, because now I'm going to talk about whatever I want. So, I really like this chapter again, because, it's like the Cutie Blossom Bash. It's like, oh, that was just so nice, and I loved that song. It was just so great. This song and the song that follows in the two-parter are the kind of songs that have made MLP such a cool and memorable show and makes it more than just another television show. And I'm so glad to see songs and moments like this coming back. So, roar! I just loved the Cutie Blossom Batch, and because not only that, because we got to see all the main fives Cutie Mark stories, but we also got to see Misty growing into her own and, continuing that journey from deciding to turn from the dark side, from being more than just a minion to being her own pony. This is a difficult thing. It's not something that you just do overnight, as sort of the song implies. They almost spent an entire chapter with her just making this decision, which in some ways was the right thing to do, because this is a difficult choice, because it's like, you just don't leave a supervillain like this and then just be like, okay, that's it. I'm no longer a minion anymore, but now what do I do? Where do I go? It's like, where do I live? Opaline's been my family like my whole life. Now that she's not my family, then Who is? Those were kind of the questions and the issues that this chapter is almost resolving in some ways. Obviously, starting off with the Cutie Blossom Bash is that, yeah, Misty has just gotten her cutie mark after all this time, so yeah, we're gonna have this great party for you, which unfortunately you will be the oldest pony there because all the other ponies are all like colts and fillies and stuff, because usually ponies get their cutie marks when they're kids. So I could see why Misty in that moment is being all like shy and like, oh, she's gone from being a minion to all of a sudden the center of attention. It's like, that's a difficult thing. And at first I almost wanted her to, you know, conquer that fear and go out on that stage, but at the same time, she's showing what makes Misty Misty, and that she's like, no, I don't want to do this. It's like, I'm shy. I don't want to go out there. Ugh. And that's okay. And the main five not only recognize that and say that we're sorry, we should have actually been understanding of this, and they actually found another way to celebrate Misty's cutie mark, so roar! And of course, in doing so, have created something very special, which I look forward to seeing where they go with that. So, See, then after that, it's like, oh my gosh, Alpha Middle is my father. Oh my gosh! In that one, Misty in some ways falls back to that almost like minion, okay fine, I'll just go along with whatever the other ponies want me to do, but then eventually realizes that once again that she has to say, no, I'm sorry, I don't want this, I don't feel comfortable here. It's like, this may have been my home before, but it's not now, and I'm not the pony that you once knew. That was a little bit difficult, but at the same time, it was also good because they both realized that, okay, the past is the past, it's the present that matters, so let's like re-meet and like learn who we both are. So all that made sense, but it's also so cool to see Misty basically standing up for herself and saying, no, this isn't who I am, this isn't the pony that I was or I want to be. I want to be the pony that I am. And I think all that's really cool, and I really like that, and I look forward to learning more about Misty and seeing where all that goes. So overall, I'm just so proud of you, Misty. It's just so great seeing her growing as a pony. So I really liked what was going on with Misty in this chapter, but I also really liked the bigger picture stuff, like what was going on with the Together Tree, the supervillain plot, because there were some very interesting developments there. So, And the other thing that was really cool is they had several direct references to Friendship is Magic. There was a painting of what appeared to be shining armor. Bolus was sitting in the back of the Alpha Beetle's tea room. Elderflower is basically wearing a famous DJ Pony's glasses from Friendship is Magic. And at one point, Elderflower says, ooh, she's wearing a Canterlot Boutique original. Wait, does that mean she's wearing one of Rarity's hats? Roar! So all that stuff was really fun. I mean, obviously, if you haven't seen Friendship is Magic, you probably won't notice or care. But if you have, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I remember that stuff. Roar! They're probably doing that just for fun and maybe to show that, hey, you know, yeah, this generation might be trying to make its own mark, but that doesn't mean that we've forgotten about the previous generation. So So back to, in some ways, the bigger picture stuff is the Together trees. It's like, ooh, interesting. And the big one is that the tree that's growing around the Dark Castle appears to be a Together tree as well. So, ooh. And apparently it was planted by Opaline, which is a big question itself, because that must mean that she must have done this in some sort of big friendship moment thing. So how did that happen, and who was that other pony? So, So the idea of these Together trees are pretty cool in that, oh, they're almost like the Tree of Harmony, in that supposedly they protect Equestria and the ponies at the same time have to protect them. But unfortunately, the most immediate thing is that because they are all interconnected together, they allow Opaline to bypass the Invisibubble and basically invade Maritime Bay. No! That was obviously quite a development. It was kind of fortunate for Opaline in that, yeah, it was Nightmare Night, so none of the ponies thought that she was an actual Alucard. But this basically means that Opaline now has a way into Maritime Bay and possibly to the other pony cities as well, so the next big thing that these characters are gonna have to go on is they're gonna have to go back to the Dragonlands after previously visiting them briefly. So, there was a lot of interesting stuff here with Hitch as well, and he's acknowledging the fact that, yeah, someday he's gonna have to let Sparky go, as of course any good dad would. At this rate, it might be happening sooner rather than later, but we shall see. But regardless, I look forward to seeing where they go with that and seeing what might be waiting for them in the Dragonland. Hopefully it's lots of dragons and not an empty Dragonland, because that would be sad. Some of the other characters are starting to get involved a little bit more. Like Jazz in some ways was almost the main character in an episode, and some of the other background ponies were spending a lot of time talking with Jazz and some of the other ponies, so I kind of like seeing that it isn't just about the main cast, that the background characters have roles to play here other than just simply standing in the background. It's like, no, they're actually being involved more directly in the episodes, and I like that. At the same time, something pretty big happened regarding the main cast, in that Misty was officially made a member of the main six. So, that's the thing in itself. It's like, they are no longer the main five, they're now the new main six, because Misty has been officially inducted into the main six. Misty is now in like the last shot in the opening. She has a room in the Crystal Bright house alongside the other ponies. The only thing left for Misty to be like officially inducted into the main six would be to have some sort of induction ceremony, which I don't think they're gonna do. I don't think they're gonna do that, because I think that probably happened in the last chapter this one, but it would have been an interesting idea. It's like, welcome to the Fellowship of the Unity Crystals. I'm really glad to see that Misty is now an official member of the main six. So, just like with everything in this chapter and the series in general, it's gonna take some getting used to, but I think this is gonna be just so cool. So, all that stuff is cool, but it kind of raises problems with Misty being a double agent, because Opaline may not care right now, but I think she's going to eventually notice, like, hey, how come you're still wearing that friendship bracelet? If Opaline ever decides to spy on the Crystal Bright house again, and she notices that Misty actually has, like, a room there, this could be bad for Misty. Wait a minute, have you been friends with these ponies all this time? And I love that Misty wears the friendship bracelet, but again, if Opaline never notices, that could be problematic, so. At the same time, I kind of like how this chapter is almost addressing this issue and saying that, yeah, Opaline does actually notice from time to time that Misty is missing, but she doesn't actually care, so, alright. I think that Opaline is smart enough to notice that there's something going on, but she's just so wrapped up with her own stuff and the fact that her, like, main brush is missing that she basically is too busy to care if Misty is missing or not, so. Okay. And this does enable Misty to spend quite a lot of time with the main six. I mean, she's pretty much missing for probably a couple days during this chapter, and Opaline basically doesn't care. So good for Misty, I guess. So overall, I think this chapter is actually really good. I really like what's going on with the characters, the supervillain stuff, the bigger picture stuff, and it's definitely so nice to see that this show is starting to, you know, do those memorable moments and songs. And it's just so nice to see these characters coming together, growing and evolving, and learning how to make their own mark in this new Equestria. And I look forward to seeing where they go, the story goes, and seeing where all this leads, and I look forward to seeing more. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you for commenting, liking, and subscribing, and until next time, this is Blue Star. Stay strong, and pony on. Blue Star out.